Recording in progress.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. We're on text 28. Text 28, Chapter 5, Canto 3. It's July 9th, 2023. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yutamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 28. Sa api amsha guna kala atma bhagavat drishti gochara atmanam vyakarot atma vishvasya asya sisrikshaya sopyam shaguna kalatma bhagavad drishti gochara atmanam vyakarodatma vishvasyasya sisrikshaya sopyam saguna kalatma bhagavad drishti gochara atmanam vyakarodatma vishvasyasya sisrikshaya sopyam shaguna kalatma bhagavad drishti gochara atmanam vyakarodatma vishvasyasya sisrikshaya
Sopyam shaguna kalatma Bhagavad drishti gochara Atmanam vyakarod atma Vishvasyasya
sisrikshaya Sopyam shaguna kalatma Bhagavad drishti gochara atmanam vyakarodatma vishvasyasya sisrikshaya sopyam shaguna kalatma bhagavad drishti gochara atmanam vyakarodatma vishvasyasya sisrikshaya. Would someone online like to chant the verse?
Sopyam sa guna kalatma
Sopyamsha Gunakalatma
Bhagavad Drishti Gochara
Bhagavad Drishti Gochara
Atmanam Yakarudatma
Atmanam Vyakarodatma
Vishvasyasya Shishikshaya
Vishvasyasya Sisrikshaya. Okay, well, yes. Christy.
So Parashmaguna Galatma
Sopyamsha Gunakalatma
Bhagavadrishti Gochara
Bhagavad Drishti Gochara
Atmanam Vyakarodatma
Atmanam Vyakarodatma
Vishvasyasya Sishikshaya
Vishvasyasya Sisrikshaya. Hare Krishna. We'll go to the word meaning. Sa Mahatattva Api also Amsha Purusha plenary expansion Guna chiefly the quality of ignorance Kala the duration of time Atma full consciousness Bhagavat the personality of Godhead Drishti Gochara range of sight Atmanam many different forms Vyakarot differentiated Atma reservoir Vishvasya the would-be entities Asya of this Sisrikshaya generates the false ego. Translation. Thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as the reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Mahatattva is the via medium between pure spirit and material existence. It is the junction of matter and spirit wherefrom the false ego of the living entity is generated. All living entities are differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead. Under the pressure of false ego, the conditioned souls, although parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, claim to be the enjoyers of material nature. This false ego is the binding force of material existence. The Lord again and again gives a chance to the bewildered conditioned souls to get free from this false ego, and that is why the material creation takes place at intervals. He gives the conditioned souls all facilities for rectifying the activities of the false ego, but He does not interfere with their small independence as parts and parcels of the Lord. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksharanmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamrupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatayubhyascha kripa sindubhyeva cha patitanan pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text 28. Sopyam Shaguna Kalatma Bhagavad Drishti Gochara Atmanam Vyakarodatma Vishvasyasya Sisrikshaya. Thereafter the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms. As the reservoir of the would-be entities, the Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego. It is a plenary expansion of the personality of Godhead with full consciousness of creative principles and time for fructification. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, yes, so following up on the previous verse and going also into the next verses. Yeah, so talking about the Mahatattva. So, sometimes we talk about, like, from different theories of, like, modern science, and it's one thing, like, oh, we can create an automobile, we can create a microwave oven, or okay, but then we get into all right, so then the origin of creation, we go like the origin of life. Well, there was this big soup. We like to make jokes about it. Okay, there was the primordial soup, this big soup, and then somehow there was lightning and thunder and boom, and then the amino acids combined and there was life. Okay, so we like to make jokes about such things, because, okay, so here, we'll give you some soup, create some soup, and then create life. Let me see it. But, so there is a primordial soup, and we're reading about it here. The Mahatattva, or the Pradhan. Okay, this gets into, some of the subtleties of universal cosmology as described in the Bhagavatam. So there is a universal soup, and it's called the Mahatattva, or the Pradhan, and so you got all the material elements that eventually becomes all this form that we see. You got all the material elements. It's described in Bhagavad Gita, some quintessential verses of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. Bhumira po nalovayu kamana buddhir evacha ahankara ityame bina prakritirashtada. Krishna says 5 gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. 3 subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, false ego. And then he goes on, aparayamitas panyam prakritim vidime para jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedam dharate jagat. He goes, okay, and also here in this whole context, in this whole creation, in addition to these 8 elements and the modes of nature, there's also the jiva, the living entity, struggling really hard. Okay. All right. So, and the struggle is because of this element described in this verse, the ahankara, the false ego. All right. So in the Mahatattva, or the Pradhan, all these different elements and the modes, and we're just kind of simplifying what they all are. They're all like in this amalgamated soup, okay, with no differentiation. And we can say that's, yesterday in the class, Malini Prabhu talked about Brahman conceptions. And usually we think of Brahman as like the Brahmagyoti, the white light. So the Mahatattva is also Brahman. It's the oneness, the undifferentiated oneness of energy. The Mahatattva, though, different than the Brahmagyoti, it's oneness with the modes of nature. Whereas the Brahmagyoti is Brahman without the modes of nature. All right. So then there's a force called material time. And material time comes into action. And material time, which is really like the glance of the Lord. Actually, Shiva has something to do with that there. So the glance of the Lord agitates the pradhan, and then the modes start moving. Then they start moving, and then things become differentiated into those, the false ego and earth, water, fire, the three modes. They become differentiated, and then we get the different forms. So material energy, as described right, as Prabhupada emphasizes right in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, material energy, like the soul, like God, is eternal. The forms it takes after it's set into action by time, the forms it takes are temporary. Okay? So, yeah, so that's some basic Sankhya cosmology like that. And, all right, so then, so this verse describes that about ahankara, or the false ego. So that's described ahankara iti. So, all right. So some approaches, you'll hear that a lot, even in the name of spiritual life. Some approaches, the idea is get rid of ego. Okay. So ego means a sense of who I am, and so in this bhakti path, that in the bhakti path, we're not interested to get rid of ego, because the fact is we are someone. So we just described kind of like the cosmology of the Mahatattva and the Pradhan and the Prakriti and the elements and the modes and the time. It's actually a lifetime study to get like what are all these elements and their interaction, but we endeavor to do a summary. Not saying I have much realization about it, but whatever, after a few decades of reading Prabhupada's books, sharing something, and each time I go around Prabhupada's books, I get another half drop of realization. What's the distinction between pradhan and prakriti and time and the modes of nature and this and that. Okay, so it's like a fortress. It's like this is quite an entanglement. At the same time, we can completely get out of the entanglement. We can talk, and there's truth about just engage in this process of bhakti. But actually, if we get down to it, simply in one moment, by changing false ego for our real ego, we've escaped. We've liberated ourselves from pradhan and mahatattva. So false ego is, I am this body and the designations connected with this body. Okay, in this body, so many analogies we could use. The dream analogy, the virtual reality, the car, the vehicle. And then when the body, right, the forms of prakriti are temporary. And then when this is finished, because the essence of false ego, Ishvaroham, Aham Bogi, Siroham Balavan Sukhi. In the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a soliloquy of the demon. Okay, so to the extent that we're in material condition life, we're always doing the soliloquy of the demon. So Krishna, he goes into a role play. They're on the chariot with Arjuna, and he goes, yeah, here's how the non-devotional character thinks. And part of that is, I'm perfect, powerful, happy. I'm the controller. I'm the enjoyer. I am the controller. I'm the enjoyer. Now, of course, that's nice. The only problem is, others don't accept me as the controller and the enjoyer. And so that's the problem. That's the problem. But I'm still trying to convince everyone. I'm still trying to convince them. But then they're all trying to convince me that they're the supreme controller and enjoyer and like that. So, okay. So that's false ego. And then after this body, then based on my, I want to be the controller and enjoyer, I'll get another body, and I've already been in so many bodies. But then once we just shift that, I'm not the body, I'm not the controller and enjoyer. I'm a spirit soul. I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. That's it. Then we're in the spiritual world. Parastas matu bhavodio vyakto vyaktat sanatana. Then we're in the spiritual world. Okay, of course, it's one thing to say, but even if we just say it with not much, with just a tip of an iceberg of realization, okay, then we're on the path back to Godhead. Jivara Srupoi, Krishnera Nityadas, Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, Beta Beta Prakash. Okay, that's it. So the false ego, that's, what's the word used? The junction of matter and spirit, wherein the false ego of the living entity is generated. Okay? So false ego, that's the most subtle of the material elements. So we shift the false ego for real. So it's not a process of elimination in this bhakti. It's a process of transformation. It's not get rid of ego, but transform false ego to real ego. Transform material mind to spiritual mind. Man mana baba man bhaktu majyaji mam namasku mama veshasi yuktvevam atmanam matprayana. Absorb our mind in Krishna thought, Krishna sound, Krishna karma. Right? Where do activities for Krishna. Right? Okay. And so, so we talked about different forms of Brahman. The Pradhan is Brahman, Brahmagoti is Brahman, and then so I'm a servant of Krishna. Then that's it. We're no longer in the prison house, and then even everything within Mahamatattva, everything within Pradhan, that becomes our friends to support us on the path. And this is okay, like. Let's say maybe a standard, perhaps somewhat childish, simplistic conception. And I'm not saying Jesus taught that, but like in the traditional Christian conception, maybe also Judaic, the idea is like, okay, so like there's God, or Jesus, different idea whether it's Jesus God or Jesus the Son of God. We won't get into that whole thing, but we're very clear about it. Jesus is a Shakti-based avatar, Jiva, living entity, Shakti. But the idea is like, okay, then there's the devil. I remember when I was in summer camp and like 10 years old, they showed us a movie called The Dybbuk. The Dybbuk. It's it's from the Kabbalah. It's the Jewish form of the devil, the Dybbuk. So and it was a scary movie. And they were in Seawersville, Pennsylvania, watching at night. They brought a TV out on a chair, and like there was 50 of us watching this little TV, 1970 or something.
Is the Judaic form of the devil different than Christian devil? Sorry, I just really...
No, I would say it's the same principle, but some different conceptions around it. And that's it. That's what we're getting at.
He had the form?
What's that?
Did he have the form? Because you have no form for God, but you have a form for the devil.
Isn't that interesting?
This is very interesting.
Isn't interesting? So yeah. So let's unpack that. Let's unpack that. So the idea is like there's the devil, Lucifer, and fighting God, or the Dybbuk, and fighting God, and like that.
God doesn't have a form.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
When you fight him.
Right.
In the movie.
What's that?
Did he have a form in the movie?
I'm not remembering the movie from 53 years ago so well, but I don't remember that he had a form.
Okay. So Lucifer is fighting against formless.
Yeah. So actually, recently I'm reading another book by Mother Teresa of Avila, and I've in the past decade I've read other books from her, Way of Perfection, Interior Castle. Now I'm reading the Book of Her Life. So it's a very, very philosophical. But it's mostly like her inner realizations. And related to this so she's struggling with all sorts of devils. And she whether it's through others or her own mind, her own desires. And then she comes to this realization, which from the way I'll label it, it's a very non-Christian realization. She said, all these devils, they're servants of God. She uses the term slaves, kind of like the Muslim, Abdallah, really means slave of God, servant of God. She said, they're really servants of God. So she says, if I just and she physically she did it, apparently one day. So if I just stand strong with my cross, just in Jesus, then they can't touch me. Because I'm serving God, they're serving God. Then I'm protected. I don't need to do anything else. And it was just it's very powerful. So, but the typical Christian conception, also Judaic, that he's it's a God and the devil. But no, Teresa's conception, it's more sophisticated. That's the Vedic conception. Right, so it's described it's called Durga. This is a prison house. Srishti stiti pralaya sadhana shaktir eka chayeva yasya bhuvanani vivarti Durga itana upamapi yasya chacheshtate sa govinda mari pusham tamaham bhajami. So Kali, Durga, the fierce, she's like a devil, witch sort of thing. I know there's the good witch of the East and the bad witch. So I don't want to label witch like that. But there's a typical conception like Wizard of Oz. And there's different types of. But Kali, she's just complete. She's a soft-hearted devotee of Govinda, and she's ready to get fierce. She's ready to get fierce to do her job as warden of the prison house. Okay, so all these energies, it is like a fortress. But just okay, the government exerts energies to build the university buildings. And we can say they're good, but then the prison buildings are bad. No, both buildings are meant to serve the king, meant to serve the government, like that. Okay, it might be said that, the warden of the prison house, Kali, compared to the rector of the university system, she's showing more dedication to the king, because you're dealing with criminals. Who are those criminals? That's us. That's us. I'm the Lord of all they see. I'm the controller. I'm the enjoyer. Similarly, what's that?
Nothing.
Kali's consort is Shiva, and Shiva is compared in the Brahma Samhita to yogurt. Do you know that? You aware of that? I know you're aware. Shiva is compared to yogurt. These are just basic stuff we should know. Okay. Kshiram yata dadivikara vishesha yogat. That is yogurt. It compares yogurt. Shiva's compared. Yeah, exactly.
Sour.
Exactly. So in other words, yogurt is the same. It's nothing but milk. It's just so Shiva's same as Krishna. But at the same time, you can't use yogurt in the same way you use milk. There is a difference.
You can make yogurt from milk, but you cannot make milk from yogurt.
Can't go backwards. Can't reverse the process. Excellent extension to the metaphor. Thank you. Sanjayate nahitata pitagastri hetu yasambutam apitata samupeti karyat govinda mari pusham tamaham bhajami. So Krishna transforms, expands as Shiva, and Shiva is serving for the pleasure of Govinda. Okay? So these wardens and even the material elements. Brahma goes on in Brahma Samhita, Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Mavutishtasha Kalasta Tatma Manasiti Jagat Chayane Yasmad Bhavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govinda Mani Pusham Tamam Bhajami. So Brahma Samhita describes earth, water, air, all the 10 directions, mind, the false ego. They're all dancing for the pleasure of Vishnu. for the source of Vishnu, Govinda. Okay. So, all right. So the process, Jivar Supoi Krishnara Nityadas. The process is bhakti. And just to get that, to get out of this imprisonment, simply realize, I'm a servant of Krishna. And then we're out. The deeper we realize, the more we're steadily out. Right? I mean, I know for me and most of us, like say during like a multi-hour morning program like this or an enlightenment program, then the realization's pretty deep as the day goes on. So to be, so it's described in the Bhagavatam, Shunvatam Svakta Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Vidyantastoya Bhajani Vidunoti Saritatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in the heart of all living entities, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, personally cleanses the heart from material desire. For the devotee who has developed an attraction, attachment, developed an urge to hear and chant, to hear the messages of Krishna. And those messages in themselves are transcendental to the Mahatattva and the Pradhan and the Prakriti. So to be more increasingly steady in real ego rather than ahankara. Ahankara is false ego. Then just we're the main thing we're recommended: get attached. Where we can use a positive use of the word addiction. Addiction is usually negative, but get like positively addicted to hearing and chanting Bhagavatam, Maha Mantra, like that. Yeah, we were reading. I think it was maybe one in the morning before japa, but yeah, I think maybe Friday. And right, so they're talking to Prabhupada. They're asking Prabhupada about quality. What about quality chanting? So Prabhupada, he says quality chanting, because there was also a discussion. It was like, I have to chant my 16 rounds. I have to chant my. So Prabhupada was like, quality chanting means 16,000 rounds. Quality chanting.
It's raising the bar.
You're raising the bar.
And so many people use the quality chanting to avoid the quantity.
Yeah, and
so many people do that.
Yeah,
and more and more.
Yeah.
It's more and more common.
More and more.
Like, I want to chant good rounds, so the 16 is not something because it pushed me to chant bad rounds.
Yeah. You're very impressed with them. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada's response was exactly the opposite. He was almost saying, like, and this could go against all our comments because it is quality, and that's true, because all it takes to chant one mantra, one Krishna, one Rama with feeling, and then our life is perfect. We don't need any more. And so that's true. At the same time, in response, Prabhupada was almost like, don't worry about quality, just do your quantity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then in the name of
no creation of habits of chanting.
Yeah.
Based on that.
In the name of I'm so dedicated to quality, I'll chant when I feel. Prabhupada's quality is just like, the idea of stopping at 16 is just painful. The idea of stopping, right? So it's true, if someone is in that deep quality, chanting with love and devotion, then they don't need a commitment to 2 rounds or 16 or like that. And at the same time, maybe some of us noticed, like, I'm not really there. Yeah, then probably just do your quantity. Of course, focus in, do our best to chant with quality. So, to become fixed in quality, and then as that series of verses goes on, Vijyate Ridyagrantish Chijante Sarvasamshaya Kshyante Chachakamani Drishta Evat Minishre. Okay, so we follow this process of hearing and chanting, Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting, studying Bhagavatam, hearing. Then the false ego is pierced. That it's about, then the false ego generated from Mahatattva is pierced. All misgivings are slashed to pieces. Prabhupada gives the example, like, if we eat a big meal, then we don't need to get into intellectualizing, like, am I really full? What do you think? maybe it's an illusion that I'm full. No, I get it. So like when we're like absorbed in this process of bhakti, then the soul is full, and then we get positive evam prasana manasa bhagavat bhakti yogata bhagavat tattva jigasa mukta sangasya jayate, and then we get positive scientific experience, spiritually empirical realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and of the soul, and then the false ego, then the chain of karmic reactions is terminated, realizing who we are as souls, servants of Krishna, and atovai kavyo nityam bhaktim paramayo muda vasudeve bhagavati atma kurvant atma kurvant prasadanam kurvant atma prasadanam. Therefore, certainly, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists engage with enthusiasm in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna with great delight, because such service enlivens the self. So with bhakti, knowledge and liberation all automatically come. One great devotee in the bhakti line, he was striving, Bilvamangala Thakur, quite a story with Bilvamangala Thakur. I don't think I'll go into the story here, but basically he was striving for impersonal realization. He came to bhakti, his guru was a prostitute named Chintamani, and she was like, yeah, you're she gave him Krishna consciousness, she gave him diksha. And so Bilvamangala Thakur said, Muktir Svayam Mukulitanjali Sevatesman. He says, ever since I'm serving Krishna, then liberation stands with folded hands at my door, begging, how can I serve you? So this is very key. This is very important. Because generally, outside of Prabhupada's teachings, there's other lines of bhakti that are bona fide, but not so prominent. Even
Not
if
so
you
clear.
not so clear, not so prominent. The idea is like, oh, there's so many paths. There's jnana, and there's karma yoga, and there's raja yoga. And the idea of, oh yeah, you can also do bhakti, but the idea of bhakti is to come to jnana, to come to knowledge, to come to liberation. Right? So that's, I would say it's an incomplete conception, but no, it's a misconception. No, bhakti is the eternal nature of the soul. So all those other processes, like the rivers leading, like a tributary is leading to the river leading to the sea. So all those other processes, really, they're meaningful to the extent that they lead one to bhakti. Otherwise, to a large extent, they're like a bunch of zeros without the one. There's a text in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada quotes this one a lot. Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapadyante vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. That Krishna says one trying to figure things out intellectually, through the jnani cognitive process. Krishna says if one is sincere, then after many births, then they'll come to the realization that Vasudeva Krishna is the source of everything, and they'll engage in bhakti. It's described in the Bhagavatam, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Projita Janiyat Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayad Hetukam. That one, by engaging in the devotional service of Sri Krishna Vasudeva, we automatically get liberation, we get knowledge, we get detachment from those degrading false ego-based desires, and then we're rising above the clouds. Again, this, as Malini described yesterday, the Mahatattva, the soup of Pradhan, which becomes differentiated with you got like alphabet soup. So first it's just all a mush. It's a mush. But then as time comes and the modes get differentiated, then you can say, here's like the A and the B and the C. So a cloud, just like I might say, the sun's covered. The sun's covered. It's not up. It's not up. The sun is covered. But it's kind of a pretty ignorant statement, right? We think of the sun compared to a puny cloud. No, my little tiny vision is covered by the cloud, but the sun's shining brightly. Thank you very much. Right? And even more, if we extend the analogy, as Prabhupada often does, and even that tiny cloud, which covers my tiny vision, the cloud is created by the sun. It's the same, just like the Shiva and Kali, the prison wardens serve at the pleasure of the king. So, yes. So this we rise above the clouds, and we're there, shining brightly in the shining sun, just by choosing our reality, by choosing the reality. I'm a servant of Krishna. And even if we don't have full realization, just even if we think that way, all right. So then, okay. So let me get guidance. Let me get guidance. Someone who can support me to realize in my day-to-day life what it means to live as a servant of Krishna. At least let me want to sincere that. Then naturally we'll take shelter of a perfect devotee of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, who can expertly guide us. So that's the thing with this whole liberation. Liberation is it's an impressive spiritual achievement from one point of view. And we were talking, there's so many different types of liberation. That's described by Lord Chaitanya in his descriptions of the Atmarama verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita. At the time of annihilation, merging into the body of Vishnu. It's a form of liberation. Molly and I were speaking yesterday, after the class. Susupti means deep sleep, right? So this is like, it depends like how you look through the crystal, as far as consciousness. It's kind of like, because right now we're awake, but we think we're this body, and I think I'm David Wolf, and I'm this person, like that. And so it's like it's illusion. I'm attached to the body. Then when we're sleeping and dreaming, in one sense, I'm liberated from that bodily conception. When I'm not thinking, oh, I need to respond to those emails, or what will I have for lunch, or I'm liberated. But I'm not liberated from the subtle material body, because there's this body in this dream, and I'm completely convinced I'm that body in the dream. Then there's a state of consciousness called deep sleep, called susupti. And it's interesting. In one sense, it's complete. It's deep ignorance. But in another sense, it's like it's a liberated state. And both of those are described in the Bhagavatam. Because in susupti, we're not only not identifying with the gross body, I'm not even identifying with the subtle body.
We just need to go see it.
Yeah. Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Right. So like, so like if I'm going to I'm going to take my 3-hour nap or something. Oh, that's complete ignorance. No.
Liberation.
It's liberation. Yeah. Right. So they're different, but now those types of liberation, like merging into the body of Vishnu at the end of the comic annihilation, susupti, deep sleep, it's liberation in a sense, but not really, because we're not free from our karma. And then when we wake up, or when bhutva praliyate, when it's time for creation again, then there's our karma again. Oh, I still need to make this much money. I still need to prove I'm right over here. I still need to... Right. So that's why, yes, bijate vidakvantis chijate sarvsamse kshiyante chasakamni dristeva ministry. So for karma to be completely destroyed, that's this process of bhakti. That includes that includes liberation. So a devotee has that impersonal liberation. Devotee doesn't care about it. Okay, it's described. Lord Shiva describes to Kali, to Parvati, his consort, Naina prasarve natu kaschana bibyati, Svargapavaga Narakesh. yapi tolyashe, yapi tolyarta darshina. So Lord Shiva, he's appreciating this wonderful devotee, Maharaj Chitraketu, and he's telling his consort Parvati, who just cursed Chitraketu, and Chitraketu was just like, "Oh, okay, thank you for your curse. So I'll be in this demoniac species, suffering like anything. Oh, thank you, mother." That's what he said. "Thank you, mother. As long as I can serve Krishna." So Lord Shiva was saying, "Look at these devotees. They don't care if they're liberated. They can go to hell. Svarga Pavarga Narake. They can go to they can go to they can go to hell. They can go to heaven. Whatever. In one sense, actually in an important sense, the hellish planets, which is we can't even describe the level of suffering. The hellish planets for a pure devotee, not me, the hellish planets are much, much, much more attractive than the impersonal Brahmagyoti. Because hell, whatever, the idea is, okay, I get to serve Krishna personally. Okay, what's my service here in hell? Harinam Sankirtan? Over there by the burning fires? Okay, great. No, that's a mood. That's like Narada Muni, he'll go to hell. Maharaj, heaven, hell, whatever.
Do they get to keep their awareness, their identity?
Exactly.
They do?
Exactly.
Sometimes when they don't know when
Yes. Yeah.
If you have a sincere desire to serve Krishna, and you're not, overcome by fear.
So the pure devotee doesn't have any potential, they're not, they can be put into illusion intentionally.
What's that?
Well, a pure devotee could go to hell, but be put into illusion like Yogamaya or...
Well, that's what Lord Shiva is saying. Wherever appeared, the pleasures of this world, even the most wonderful pleasures of material world, they just mean nothing for pure devotee. And the most terrible pains and suffering, they also mean nothing. Just like, can I serve Krishna? Can I serve Srila Prabhupada? Lord Chaitanya prays, Nadanam Najanam Nasundrim Kavitam Vajjagadisha Kame Mamajanmane Janmane Shri Bhavtad Bhaktir Hetu Kittvai. He says, I don't want women, I don't want wealth, I don't want followers. He says, just let me serve you birth after birth. Meaning okay, heaven, hell, whatever. Whereas, see, as far as that sort of liberation, the oneness of the Brahmagyoti, that's hellish for a devotee, because then the devotee, they're not alive to their eternal individual personality with which they serve Krishna. So that's, in that sense, the Brahmagyoti is the most hellish existence for a devotee. And so to the extent that we just choose the reality of who we are, I'm a servant of Krishna, Jivaras Rupoi Krishnera Nityadas, then we revive our spiritual body and our spiritual senses, and survive the verse that Prabhupada, the Bhagavatam verse that Prabhupada, as far as I'm aware, gave class on the most. It's 1.2.6, and Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Hokshaje Ahetukya Pratyata Yayatma Supasidati. That the supreme occupation for all entities is devotional service to Krishna, and the Lord who's transcendent to the Pradhan and the Mahatattva. Such service, it must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Another way Prabhupada translates that is that if we're sincere about devotion, if we have clear intention for devotional service, nothing material, no hellish or heavenly condition can get in the way. And that's the bliss of the soul. So thanks for your attention to Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. I welcome any comments and questions. Anasuya.
So when you initially read from the translation, the Mahatattva is chiefly in the mode of ignorance.
Yeah.
I was appalled by that statement. And so now I'm understanding more so why that was actually the mode of nature that Mahatattva needed to be in to be able to do this soup. So I'm appreciating the class and broadening my understanding that modes of nature can serve Krishna in this capacity.
Thanks for sharing that. So I'm glad that, when you first went through the verse, some doubt or question there, and through the class you got clarity. That's it. So the Mahatattva, it is a soup, or it is a big bang. We can describe it that way, but it's all in service to the supreme personality of Godhead. And so because material world has sattva, rajas, and tamas, but it's all pervaded by ignorance. Okay, material world essentially means I am this body, I am the controller and the enjoyer. So within that ignorance, then we have different modes, each species, right? The trees are ignorant, they're just standing there. Well, within trees, there's mango trees that give beautiful fruit. There's trees where if you take a bit of their leaf, you'll die of poison. So there's trees in different modes. There's dogs in different modes. But everything material existence basically means ignorance. So that Mahatattva is the source of all that.
Yes. And then I liked that at the beginning in the purport that the Mahatattva is the medium between pure spirit and material existence.
Yeah.
So so knowing that this is all of Krishna's creations, but it's identifying with the pure spirit soul and not the bodily identification of our material existence and others' material existence. So when the spirit soul leaves this body, so Lakshmi and I were having this conversation. So what is this dead matter then? What is the quality of this dead matter if there's no spiritual spark still alive? So we were having this conversation. What is considered, well, in my opinion, like trash? So I just want to get rid of the body because it's no longer serving the spirit soul.
Right.
So I'm not. Even though my mother had a beautiful service, that's not what I want because I don't identify with the body.
Yeah.
So to me, it can be burned or it can be, whatever. So I'm not attached to the body format.
Yes.
So I was appreciating again the pure spirit and material existence because there is that separation, even though I was destined to take this body in this life.
Yes.
But it's not going to serve me. Yeah. Once I'm gonna move on to a different form. So. It's just helping because we were having this. It was just helps to clarify.
Yeah, thanks for that, Anasui. There's the Yukta Vairagya principle. Anasaktasya Vishayan Yataham Upayunchita Nibbanda Krishna Sambande Yuktam Vairagyam Uchate. That means not bhakti means not to reject the material energy, to use it in Krishna's service, including this body. We can use the temporary in the service of the eternal. We can use the relative in the service of the absolute. So we can use the dead body. Now if we go more into it, so the body is burned. It's generally recommended because if the soul is attached to the body and it's like the graveyard thing, then it can get in a ghostly way, it can hang around the graveyard. It's like burn the body, let's move on, But if we go more into it, nothing's dead. In every atom, or even every subatomic particle, andantarasta paramanu chantarasta, there's a super soul. What's that?
Every cell of the body.
Every cell of the body, every living cell.
Also living entities in the body.
All the living entities, right.
And we kill them when the soul leaves. That's also a choice.
Yeah.
We kill many living entities.
Yes. So
They were causing suffering.
Yeah.
It sounds.
so in one sense, super souls in every subatomic particle, every living entity, every amoeba, every paramecium, like that. So that's That's kind of like a more nuanced vision. Generally, we say the body's dead, the soul's alive, and that conception is true at one level, and that's helpful, to help us understand, to identify with the living soul we are. And at the same time, our arms, our legs, our intelligence, all this, the ideas, let's be guided by Srila Prabhupada, let's be guided with spiritual intelligence, guided by Bhagavatam. How to use this context in the service of spirit, and then we spiritualize our senses, we spiritualize our body. Thank you, Anasuya. Malin.
I have a few comment question. I was looking inside the Krishna book because we read Krishna book Friday, and then Nandini, maybe you remember the exact quotes, but we read about our devotee. Heaven and hell is the same for the devotee.
Heaven and hell, yeah.
And even he will prefer to be in hell than heaven if he doesn't serve Krishna in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were speaking about Satan and Lucifer and how ugly they are. But then there is many worshippers of Shakti.
Yes.
Many worshippers of Kali.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to be afraid of Kali.
Mm-hmm.
They worship her with...
Yeah.
I was just reading last night, I'm reading a biography of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the one you lent.
Okay, yeah.
And he speaks about his grandfather.
Yeah.
And his paternal grandfather was a Shakta.
Shakti, yeah.
And he was really absorbed and he was really serving. It's like you said, Saint Teresa of Avila.
Yeah.
She was, they're all serving Krishna.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, he was worshipping goddess Kali, but then just a few days before he was dying, even so he was not sick, he wasn't showing any sign of wear and tear. He asked his grandson, who was at the time living in a different city, to come, say, I'm going to die. He called
Kedarnath. Yeah.
He called him to say, I'm going to die. And Kedarnath was surprised because he arrived and he was smoking, whatever he was smoking, and he was speaking with his friends, and he didn't show any sign that he was dying. And then he called on Kedarnath. He said, Kedarnath, at the time he was 22.
Yeah.
And he said, by the time you're 27, you will be established in your in your service that you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And you're going to be celebrated as a great Vaishnava.
Yeah.
So, he was worshipping Kali, but because Kali is connected, and because she is serving, and we don't know what his relationship was with Kali.
Right.
But a few things happened. Is first he was deciding when he left, and he really left, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur described it very well, the way his grandfather left.
Yeah.
And he gave a message to Bhaktivinoda Thakur that he will be a leader in a Vaishnava community. And there was no sign there of anything.
Mm.
So that show how, if we, Kali, if we make friends with darkness, if we make friends in darkness and see the darkness as servant of Krishna also, because nobody's not, there is no such a thing as not serving Krishna. Everyone, the Atmarama verse, all about, Atmarama is everyone, really, basically. And so it was a thought. And then I have a question.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that example from the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Do you remember that part?
Now that you mention it, yes.
Where is the book? Oh, yeah. Then now I have it's a technical question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but the last verse.
Seems like you're doing it. Seems like you're doing it, put me on.
Yeah, maybe. It's the Mahatattva, or shadow of pure consciousness, is the germinating place.
We're in the purport to 28?
To 27.
Oh, 27, okay.
It is pure goodness.
Okay.
So the Mahatattva, or shadow of pure consciousness, is the germinating place of all creation. It is pure goodness. with a slight addition of the material mode of passion, and therefore activity is generated from this point. And here in a verse, is a Mahatadva is chiefly in a mode of ignorance, and it generates the false ego.
Yes.
So I like to understand, like I know that often in our philosophy there is, like I was sharing yesterday in the class,
Yeah.
Like the completeness in incompleteness,
Yes.
perfection
Yes.
in imperfection,
Yeah.
and it's all, there is seemingly contradiction, and I know
Yeah.
it's not contradiction,
Yeah.
but I like to understand how to put it together.
Okay. Okay, well, looking earlier in the purport to 27,
Yes, the darkness.
so it says, the Mahatattva is directly connected with the supreme consciousness of the Supreme Being, but still it appears as matter. So here's my understanding, and a lot of this is like, we meditate on these principles and get realization. It's generally not linear or within, it tends to be a trans-empirical sort of realization. So my understanding is like, yeah, from Krishna's point of view, Mahatattva is coming from Krishna, and so it's an energy of Krishna that Krishna is using for service. So therefore it's directly connected with the supreme consciousness of the Supreme Being, and so therefore it's, Krishna means it's Shuddha Sattva, coming from pure goodness. At the same time, the way that Krishna is using the energy, he's using it in a way that to us appears material. It's an energy that Krishna uses for Krishna's spiritual purposes. Krishna uses it to put us into ignorance. And therefore, in one sense, the whole basis of Mahatattva, we could say it's both pure goodness, it's originating from pure goodness, and the whole basis of it is it's all about the covering of ignorance. And then that term ahankara, aham is I, and kara means do. I am the doer. That's what. So that the passion, right? So Krishna just puts a little bit of rajas, but for Krishna, this rajas is also serving spiritual purpose from Krishna's point of view. So Krishna is putting a little bit of rajas, and that's the essence of I am the doer. I am the doer. I need to do this. Check off my to-do list. So Krishna puts a little bit of that, and then so that little bit of passion, the whole Mahatattva, Krishna is using it in purely good ways. But from our point of view, that has us madly running here and there in ignorance and forgetfulness of who we are. So that's how I can see how those apparent contradictions are simultaneously true.
Can I contribute?
Sure.
Because it's therefore influenced by the interaction of eternal time. The supreme sum total of matter, called the Mahatattva, became manifested. And in this Mahatattva, the unalloyed goodness, the Supreme Lord, sown the seed of universal manifestation out of his own body. Thereafter, so it seems there is a sequence.
Yeah.
So maybe it starts in pure goodness, like the living entity when they come down, when they first come down, they're in pure goodness with a grain of Raja. But very quickly in terms of eternal time, that little seed of Raja transforms in complete ignorance.
Yeah.
And because thereafter, the word thereafter, the Mahatattva differentiated itself into many different forms as a reservoir of the would-be entities. The Mahatattva is chiefly in a mode of ignorance, and it generates a false ego. So maybe there is a sequence, like you start with pure goodness, contaminated with a little of Raja, and that little of Raja goes so quickly that it descends in
Yes.
chiefly in a mode of ignorance, and
Yeah.
we experience that.
Yes.
You know, like the whatever, like moment of goodness that we may experience.
Yeah.
And if there is a slight
Right.
grain of Raja,
Raja.
wanting to control, wanting to dominate, wanting to create, wanting to think we are the doer, so quickly we can be chiefly in a mode of ignorance.
So quickly, yeah.
That's another question.
Thanks for that, and that makes sense to me. Yeah, there's, because sometimes in just a few Sanskrit syllables, there's maybe a few steps in the sequence defined, and it's very subtle, and it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying, because sometimes you think pradhan prakriti, but there's a whole sequence, mahatma pradhan prakriti. So here, where the pure goodness, okay, then the time comes, okay, then we got the mode of passion. So
And
that
we go chiefly into the mode of ignorance.
yes,
Quite quickly.
quite quickly.
Well, quickly, we don't know, because like Chodita, influenced by time, and as Prabhupada say, everything takes its own time.
Yeah,
So it may be billion of years,
yeah.
like the manifestation, like a baby is like
It
9
could
months.
it could be a lifetime of Brahma.
It could be a lifetime of Brahma, yeah. But quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yes,
From Vishnu's point of view, quite quickly.
it's just quite quickly.
Thanks for that. Thanks for those conjectures, Molly. Garuda.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for the class. I had two things that I was thinking about. One, I liked you pointing out how everything leads, the different processes of yoga leads to bhakti.
Yeah.
And to really understand the quality of the spirit is bhakti.
Yeah.
Like the inherent quality of the spirit is bhakti. So it seems like it's really important to know what the inherent quality of the spirit is, because it seems like you could avoid like spending a lot of extra time and energy
Yeah.
doing other processes that aren't connected to our inherent nature.
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of thinking about when you said that, because I never really like put it in or thought of it kind of in that context before. So I liked how you put those two together when you were sharing.
That's that's a great point. Could the other processes, they're not natural for the soul. Bhakti is the only process where the process itself is transcendental. The goal is transcendence, and that's why in Bhakti the journey is the goal. Other processes, the idea is, well, I'll do this jnani speculation thing till I become liberated. Not that after I'm liberated I'll still do this jnani. Or like I'll work hard in karma, or I'll worship the demigods till I'm liberated. Okay, then I'm not going to continue. But with bhakti, that's the eternal activity of the soul. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and then I was also thinking about how I was appreciating this philosophy in that, like, it actually goes into defining what the qualities of the soul are, where a lot of other religions and philosophies don't really kind of go there
Yeah, go ahead.
very much.
Yeah.
And then another thought I had was, we spoke about like living entities dwelling in our bodies. And then I was thinking like, oh, they all have spirit souls too, and they're inside our body. And then I was thinking like how we can serve them by, engaging in this process.
Yeah.
And like, so it's not just like we're not just serving ourselves, or, we're serving actually all the living entities existing inside of us. So that was kind of cool to think about, because I was like thinking, we were mantra chanting in the woods all together, and where all the living entities were passing or hearing the holy names, but I didn't really think about like the actual entities like living inside me as well. So I don't know, just kind of expanded my like
Giving prashadam to all the worms.
yeah.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
so
that.
anyway, I was just thinking about that. I was appreciating that.
Thanks for that. Expansive point, and also the point. Yeah, it's like the point that about like the idea of what is the self, what is the soul, what's the essential nature of the soul. That from a philosophical point of view, I mean that might be the main thing that brought me to Prabhupada. I mean, okay, there's Prashad, but we're talking about philosophy here. The idea of like God's a person. I didn't hook onto that real quick. I'm still challenged, like that. But as you said, in other, you can find other religions, this and that, serve God. As far as who is it that's serving God, and a clear distinction here between body, mind, and soul, and so scientifically, logically explained. That so much attracted my intellect. And so like, well, this is, and that's why even like sometimes people go like, oh, so you were saying yesterday, so you believe God can be a big fish, God could be a turtle, again, different fantastic things, which doesn't bother me, because it's just like, yeah, let's just believe what we can see. Like there's string theory, and there was this primordial soup, and there was a big explosion of nothing. So like wherever you go, you get into that which is beyond, that which is trans-empirical. And so there's like, so where do we trust? And I trust Prabhupada and the Vedas. But then, and that was helping me, because like, okay, well, in terms of like, apart from God and cosmology, this and that, who are you? Who am I? And by far, just the most rational explanation, right there, Bhagavad Gita, as given by Prabhupada, with logic, experience. So it's just like, if we start to what, just like in that very grounded sense, this is what makes most sense. So I want to explore more what this source says about other things too. Thanks for that. Damayanti.
Well, first I thought you were going to talk about the liberation of sleep, but...
Well, I did have a comment about that too, so maybe I can...
Thank you for the class. I was just thinking about the personal growth organization I was in before.
Yeah.
It's Apatow, Reevaluation Counseling. They're really sincere and dedicated to study the qualities of the human being.
Yeah.
So that's how it was atheist.
Right.
But really, dedicated, and in their study, it wasn't impersonalism. It was, there was like all the qualities, like all possible good, beautiful qualities existed in every human. And I remember they would say that, I remember this one, sort of, not them, it was one person, Harvey Jackins, he like kind of led everything, but he studied deeply. And he said that the natural tone or mood of the human is zest. He would use the word zest. So I think of it as like bliss.
Zest, bliss.
Zest.
Like enthusiasm and joy.
Enthusiasm and joy. Yeah. So that's like the nature that we all, come born with from the simple human study. And anyway, when I encountered the concept of bhakti, it was like the not the last, I mean, obviously there's so much more for me to realize, but it was like, that's what's, I'm an eternal soul.
Yeah.
It's not just this one, like, lifetime. So being eternal, and then there's a relationship with my source, which if I have personhood, source has personhood, and then the relationship is one naturally of love, which is relatable because I already studied and believed that the nature of human, like the nature of the human is loving and serving and giving.
Zestful.
Yeah, just ready to serve and love and be grateful and give, and all that. I already believed in all those qualities, and so just to add that it's possible that there's an eternal soul within, and then that the source has personhood, and the nature is, of course, loving service. Like, yes, like that was really missing for me. And I would say my personal growth didn't move forward, and it's not like other people within that do personal growth without spiritual life, that they don't move forward with their life. But for me, I was like, not really, I don't know, anyway. Now that I'm thinking about it, who knows if I've moved forward since I started practicing Bhakti Yoga, I still have all the flaws, or I don't know, they're more highlighted and, ugh. Anyway, let's forget about
Yeah,
that
we're not.
question. Such a topic. But, anyway, I love it.
Hare
The
Krishna.
conclusion of bhakti, it's just, there's nothing that makes more sense. And I think it's in all the religions, but then,
It's the essence of all bona fide religion. And you're like, yes, like that foundation of what you got from reevaluation counseling, you didn't need to give it up. At the same time with Prabhupada's teachings, Bhagavad Gita, this adds completion. This adds completion. I have, in different formats, I've told similar stories. Back in the late 70s, I was introduced to transformational seminars, personal growth, early 80s, person-centered counseling, and I so much liked the principles. And then when I got Prabhupada's teachings, like the principle, 100% responsibility of the well, they wouldn't call it diamond nature, but the idea that we can create all the zest and enthusiasm like that. Yes, I didn't need to give it up. I just said, this adds completion to it, right? This adds completion to it. That like even like we're all responsible, 100% responsibility. All right. So how come one's born like this? How come one's born like that? Like there's not equality there. But then, okay, that's called the law of karma, and that's called what we do with our desire and reciprocation and with. So, thank you.
There is no question. I want to go back to your point about karma and jnana, and we can look at it like, we don't want to follow another path. Other paths are not going to lead to bhakti. That's the way to look at it. But I think also a more conducive way is to look at when I do practice bhakti yoga, how much really what I'm doing is karma yoga or sankhya yoga or jnana yoga.
Yeah.
It seems that's also, like there.
It's included.
That's not what I'm sharing. That's true what you're saying. It's included. But how much what I'm practicing is not bhakti yoga in reality.
I see.
Maybe I name it bhakti yoga.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm practicing bhakti yoga. But really, if I was to analyze the content or the consciousness or the purpose, I will see that. Well, in fact, no. What I'm really seeing is that what I'm practicing is not bhakti yoga. Like I'm looking at a different perspective to look at the same thing. And we could look at, we don't want to follow another process. Yeah, we don't want to follow another process. How much are we following another process in the name of bhakti yoga? And of course, bhakti yoga includes all other processes.
Thanks for that. So, like, in the name of practicing bhakti, how much are my motivations to collect knowledge? How much are my motivations to get some good karma and something good materially? My qualities become nicer, then I get more approval, or maybe I'm more. Yeah. How much do I have karma and jnana motivations or mystic yoga motivations? Yeah, self-improvement,
self-development, and like, this is not bhakti.
Yeah.
And like all those things.
Thanks. In the name of bhakti.
And so I'm looking at the Bhagavad Gita, like, okay, we can analyze other paths, and it's very helpful, and it's also there to help us weed out what's not bhakti.
Yeah.
In what we are practicing every day.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Maybe generously, it's mixed bhakti, misra bhakti.
Mishra bhakti.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
And then because we know what those other processes are, then we have more knowledge to identify. We can make distinctions.
Make those distinctions.
And that's why it's, Prabhupada gives us that so much. Manya Vilasita Sunya Jnana Karma, and every time you always speak about karma, always speak of karma yoga and jnana yoga and impersonalism and creative activity and demigod worship and so many things. He was speaking to, Westerners. In fact, it doesn't matter because we don't even know what those paths are.
To help us see what's the actual flower of bhakti and what could be a weed that we're telling ourselves is bhakti. Kara.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Wait, something like that. Some reason I'm echoing.
Oh, now I'm not hearing you so well now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
For some reason, I like hear myself.
Maybe put yourself
It
on
needs
mute.
to mute your computer. Okay, I think that's better. I was just gonna say that I really appreciated what you shared, that Prabhupada spoke to about our rounds, like quantity versus quality. And I actually didn't fully realize where I was coming from. Like, I've been inspecting my relationship with chanting recently because I'm starting to chant every day now. And I'm looking at like the days where I don't feel as motivated to chant and that is. But yeah, I don't think I fully realized that part of that resistance was me using like the motivation for quality as like an excuse for chanting at all. And somehow I was thinking, well, if I'm not like sitting in front of the altar, like really focused in, then like why would I even attempt to chant? If I'm not waking up at 5, then like somehow I was thinking that was more offensive than like, just chanting, like Prabhupada says, like just chant. And yeah, I wasn't really, maybe there was, a lot of that was coming from a false ego place of, I need to have some mystical, or not even mystical, but like some beautiful experience with God for me to have any progress with my spiritual life. And yeah, I just wanted to share that I appreciated that piece that Prabhupada said, that instruction. It really, it's supporting me. You have to unmute yourself now, Dhira Govinda.
Thank you, Kara. Thanks for sharing. I personally appreciate hearing your realizations. Yeah, and I appreciate your humble, courageous introspection. It can be false ego that the reason I don't chant 16 rounds per day like that, because I am so sincere about quality chanting. I'm so dedicated to spirituality. So that's so much. Yeah, I'll just reiterate. Thanks for appreciating that point of the class. Yeah, that Srila Prabhupada. It is said the cure for inattentive, unfocused, offensive chanting is more chanting. It's like, well, because my chanting is inoffensive, I just won't chant until I'm not offensive anymore, and then maybe in 50 years I won't be offensive, and then no. Prabhupada's very clear. Whatever it is, however distracted, this and that, whatever our low motivations, chant and have some quantity, commit to some quantity, and do it for the rest of our lives, and we can increase the quantity. But it means like whether we feel it or not. So chanting is the main thing. Also with Bhagavad, like when I'm like pure, I'm going to read Bhagavatam. But until then, I'm not qualified to read Bhagavatam. I have so much respect for Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. I'm not going to read them no, that's not the program. The program is, whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to clear 20 minutes each day, or whatever it is, to read Prabhupada's books. And some days it might feel dry. Some days it might be this is a profound experience of God. Whatever. I'm committing to my highest good. Thanks for that sharing, Kara.
I just wanted to say real quick, that's why I really love Bhakti Yoga than saying the Catholic Church, because it is a personal interaction that I'm having with Prabhupada and Krishna, that I'm having a personal relationship, that it's not someone on the pulpit giving a lecture and then half the congregation is sleeping or preoccupied on their phone or whatever is happening for them. And I had experienced that when I went back to Iowa, was that my one aunt plays the organ, so she's like totally engaged in service, and I love seeing her playing and singing, but it only goes like in the choir, right? The cantor, who's really full of devotion. And so I love the small home programs, like we had Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wonderful program that's saying that have home programs, and then when you get to a certain quantity of people, then make another home program. So I really love the interactions with each other, and then our personal relationships that we develop through time. And just that's what gives me so much joy and bliss, is that, and that's why I wanted to come this morning, because I haven't been in a while, because I wanted that in-person experience again. But it's also that personal relationship that it continues to feed upon having these home programs. So thank you very much for this morning. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Anasuya. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.